Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. And welcome back to The Goal of the Wise, show dedicated to the goal of the wise, which was authored by the Qa'im, the Mahdi, the savior of mankind, Abdullah Hashim Abul Sadiq. An amazing book which, so far through the episodes that we have gone over, has been an epic journey of just mind-blowing revelations, things that humankind has never thought of, or perhaps they've thought about it, but they were not able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And that's for most of the stuff here in this book, which I'm pretty sure those who have been catching up on the episodes can see that someone with divine knowledge, someone from God, must have compiled this book, because there's no way that any normal human being could come to all of these conclusions in such a coherent way. If you want to download the book, please scan the QR code that we will pop up on the screen right now. And from there, you can download the book. It is a book available in Arabic, English, Spanish, French, German, and a multitude of other languages, and many more languages to come. We also have the manifesto, which is available on our website at theahmadireligion.org. If you also want to download that, which is 30 pages long, you can do so. And it is a manifesto which will really change your perspective as to how it is that we should be taking care of this planet, and how to and how it is that we can accomplish having a divine just state in this world. So I guess without further ado, we will continue from where we left off in door number 7. And where we left off really was with the unknown prophets and messengers. We talked about how Krishna was a prophet, and Buddha and Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and many other prophets and messengers, Zeus, Odin, Allat and Manat and Uzza. So I think that was very fascinating for people to know about, and perhaps a lot of people are thinking to themselves, over all of these episodes that we have talked about, is why is it that our scholars have not talked about these things? Because, we have brought references. Abu Sadiq has brought references from the Bible, from the Torah, from the Quran, from the Hadiths of the Ahlul Bayt. But this is stuff that, unfortunately, although it's in the books, most people never heard about it, because most people actually don't read. And what they do is they rely on a scholar, they rely on a man that supposedly claims to have knowledge, to have studied for years, yet none of this cool stuff, none of this esoteric stuff, none of the stuff that actually benefits you is spoken about. So now, I think in this episode, we have to now shift our attention to not just the knowledge of Abu Sadiq, but as to those claiming to have knowledge. The scholars, the rabbis, and the priests in this day and age, which for some reason, everything that they talk about now is just a complete parrot repeat of the same stuff, the same nonsense that we've been hearing for years. There's nothing new from them. Only thing is, obey, listen to your government, come to a Sunday school, come to the Sunday church, come to the Saturday synagogue, come to the Friday mosque, pray your prayers, give some charity, and you're good. It's like, what kind of life is that?
Yeah, this is like, and on top of that, they would teach you how to brush your teeth, and how to get married and get divorced, the laws of divorce and laws of marriage. They made religion into just a social structure. There's nothing more to it than that. But yet, even the social structure that they teach is not actually based on pure justice. It's not based on a divine message that is actually from God himself, because they always had to innovate into the laws. Things that are modern, for example, for the sake of argument, if you wanted to donate a body part, would be halal or haram? They would innovate into the religion, all kinds of rulings from their own pockets. Mind you, none of them would claim to be appointed by God as lawmakers in this religion, except that they say, we do ijtihad. Ijtihad is like a struggle, something that a scholar goes and sits down and reads for 2-3 years about a specific topic, comes out, if he doesn't find a specific clear hadith or Quranic verse about it, he will make an assumption, a assumption, and they would tell you it is an assumption. They would tell you it's a guess or it's an opinion. And then they say, and you can do it because it's right.
SubhanAllah, you know, the first thing that came up into my mind as soon as you talked about how they do ijtihad and everything that they talk about and everything that they reveal to the people in terms of jurisprudence and laws is assumption. That kind of reminds me of the Quranic verse that says, and verily these people follow nothing except assumption.
Exactly. And so this is where it's a wonder why people actually, after we expose these scholars for so many years, and you'll be hearing us if this is the first time that you've tuned into the channel or the video, then you'd have this is a channel and videos and websites, all of these social medias where you'll find our videos. This religion is the religion that is exposing the satanic movement underneath the cloak of a scholar of religion. You understand? So the idea is that we are going to expose for you guys, and inshallah you'll stick with us in this journey. It's going to be a long journey, and it's going to be an intense journey, and it's at the same time we're going to give you the evidence for that. We're not saying we're not against scholars just because we don't like scholars. It's not like we have a personal agenda versus any of them personally. We have not met any of them personally, and inshallah we don't, you know. So the idea is just like, the idea is that the Prophet Muhammad, when you go into the books of the narrations, both Sunnis and Shias, he's warned us of the non-working religious scholars. Jesus Christ warned us of the non-working religious scholars. They told us that these are the wolf in sheep clothing. They told us that they are the most evil under the heavenly sky. When the Prophet Muhammad prophesied for us, and he told us that we are approaching a time that nothing of the Quran is left except for the name, and nothing of Islam is left except for the name, and nothing of the Quran is left except for the writing or the drawing. Masajiduhum amira, their mosques are glamorous, amazing, multi-million-dollar houses of God, of worship, right? So that you can go and worship Allah. To remove yourself from the dunya, you have to pray in a mosque that is multi-million-dollar spent on it. Then he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, masajiduhum amira wa hiya kharabun min al-huda. Their mosques are glamorous and well built, and they're empty of guidance. And yet, he said, the scholars of that time are the most evil under the heavenly skies. From them is the fitna, which is tests and trials, and to them it returns. So the scholars are not mentioned, not in the Quran, not in the Bible, not in the Ahadith and narration books, in a good light. They were always mentioned as somebody who's against the prophets and the messengers and against their message.
Yeah, and the only time that the hadiths ever talk good about scholars, the imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim Islam, they would say, we are the scholars mentioned. Yeah. But so it's not any normal human being.
It's not general.
It's not general. It's not like, okay, a learned religious man suddenly is a scholar. No, the scholars in reference, when the Ahlul Bayt would talk about scholars, they're saying, actually, we're talking about ourselves. Yeah. We're talking about our forefathers, who is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Imam Ali, Al-Hasan, Al-Hussein. These were the true scholars that the people had to listen to. These were the true men of God that the people had to submit to and take their religion from. Not your Friday sheikh who God only knows what he's thinking about and what his agendas are, right?
Exactly. And we have this saying of Ahmad al-Hassan Islam, about the scholars of the end times that says, before you ask before you ask the scholars about the Imam Mahdi, ask the Imam Mahdi about the scholars, right? At the end times. And it just rings so true, because you've never seen, as you mentioned, a time or place in history where scholars, or like, for example, the Pharisees, or any of these like learned men that had high positions of power, actually handed over these keys to the kingdom that we mentioned in the previous episodes to that man that is divinely appointed by God. And what is scary is that is something that is still happening today. You see it in the Pope, you see it in the Vatican with the Pope through thousands of years now, where they usurp the rights of Peter and then make innovation after innovation, and like some crazy stories about the papacy and how that changed hands, and the different scandals that's involved in. And that's just sort of Catholicism. You see the same with Sunni Islam, just the death of Imam Ali, and then with the rise of Wahhabism and all this sort of extremist fundamentalist ideology, and you see the same in Shia Islam too, with the whole system of like marja taqlid, which is something that is pretty scary for me when you take a seat back as like I guess you could say a former Shia, and look at it, because this concept of marja taqlid is basically you pick a scholar that you emulate, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You pick a scholar that you think is the most knowledgeable of scholars. You put your religion and your hereafter is effectively in their hands, and it's called you emulate that scholar because you basically take your religion from that man.
Right.
And in effect, he becomes your imam of your time. And if you don't follow him, the sort of understood ideology is that if you don't follow him, all of your acts of worships are not counted, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what is scary is he doesn't have any appointment. He's not got a will, and he's not got anything that he can stand on. Like he's not a rock like Peter was, for example.
Yeah.
He's just a man that went to a university, the business of scholarship in Iran or Iraq, for example, and is just running away with religion and then taking the sayings like whoever dies without having recognizing the moment of the time dies a death of ignorance, and they're using the ignorance of the people to their own benefit, and it's just a money making machine. And it's this very scary reality when you think about it, because these people they're looking for God. You could say they're looking for God. They're looking for a leader. They're putting their trust in someone that they believe is trustworthy. But when you look at the history, when you put everything on the table as like a lawyer, the case of religion, you see that actually every single time a scholar comes or someone that is not appointed by God, it's always taking religion and sort of commercializing it and using it for their own benefit and misguiding the masses.
They say that it's the easiest business in the world is to make a religion and do it. So that's why Satan did that. He did sit on the straight path. The straight path was the religion of God, which is made not to make money, but it's made so that it can take the sustenance and spread it to the poor and give it to everybody, so that everybody could have something to eat, everybody would have a roof over their heads, not so that you can make riches and do all that kind of stuff. That wasn't the main intention behind it. So the idea is that they took this and they turned it into a money-making business. It's a scam. They are scamming people. I imagine it like this. If you go to America, go to Chicago, you'll find many gangs over there, right? Like you'll have lots of gangs, right? Each section of Chicago would have a specific gang in it, and if you wear the different colored clothes, you could get shot. You could easily get shot.
So by simply wearing red or blue, suddenly you walk into the wrong neighborhood and you get shot or stabbed because you're associated now with a certain gang based on that color.
Exactly. Now you can imagine in your own town and wherever you are, there's definitely, in your country, there's definitely something similar. But in the Middle East and countries that are Islamic, instead of it being gangs, these gangsters actually took a book and read a little bit. And once they read a little bit, they dressed in the imam and they sat on the minbar and they started to talk. You see? And so they started to scam the people instead of like going to their houses one by one, which is a more intelligent way of controlling people, you can say, because they don't like just randomly like deal with drugs and stuff like that and they shoot each other back and forth without a reason. They now have a good reason. It's a God told me to do it.
You know, like, do you know what the people really need to do? They really need to imagine these scholars without their costumes, because that's what it really is. Wolves in sheep's clothing. If you just imagine them wearing a shirt and jeans like any other normal human being, and you hear what they say, suddenly the whole facade about them drops. Like no, seriously, test it out, like visualize it. Remove the turban over their heads and the cloak and like this imamat that they wear, and you'll see, or like the kufi that they wear over their heads, whether they're priests, Muslims, or rabbis, and you'll see that actually a lot of that which they talk about is just street nonsense. That is just a nice way to take your money. And you know, as you said, like the Muslims, they did a really good job, especially the Shias, in terms of, and as Jamil said, you know, this practice of taqlid really made the people fall into like this kind of gang mentality. Like, hey, look, Sistani is my gang leader.
Exactly.
Khamenei is my gang leader. Don't talk bad about him, otherwise like we got beef now. So, you know, it's funny because there's actually a plethora of narrations from the Ahlul Bayt, from the Miss Peace, that actually say that doing taqleed of another human being besides the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam from the Miss Peace is absolutely haram. You can't do taqleed of someone who is not from Ahlul Bayt. You cannot do taqleed of someone who is not appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the way that they get away with it is how? Well, obviously their followers don't read.
Yeah.
Their followers don't
Exactly.
read.
Yeah.
And any hadith that says that you cannot do taqleed to a scholar, they'll say, look, this
is daif.
This is daif.
This is weak.
Yeah, but like now suddenly all of these dozens, it's not just one hadith,
Yeah.
it's dozens of hadiths that say you cannot do taqleed, it's haram. Upon a normal human being, you can only do taqleed with us, the Ahlul Bayt. Said, no, it's daif. No, it's weak.
It's weak.
No, like this is a fabricated narration. I mean, no, this is how they trick the people.
Yes,
and by the way, something that we have to make clear, this is not just Islam, guys. It's not just Shia Islam.
Yeah.
It's also Sunni Islam. In Sunni Islam, people, they break up into madhabs. You have the Hanafi school of thought, the Shafi school of thought, the Maliki school of thought, the Hanbali school of thought. These guys have their taqleed, but like it's a taqleed instead of the living people. They're doing taqleed on people who died 1,000 years ago, who were not even prophets, messengers sent by God, and they have their own ideas and beliefs that people
and they disagree between each other. So what Islam is that? Like
Exactly.
you have a scholar coming to you telling you Allah has hands, and then the other scholar comes to you and says no, he doesn't.
and
Like what Islam is that?
Yeah.
The Prophet,
Exactly.
the idea is that ask yourself this, and that's why when you opened up, which was very amazing, because the quote from Ahmad al-Hasan والسلام, was like, did you guys ask Allah in the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt and the prophets and the messengers about the scholars of end times before you ask the scholars of end times about the one who's appointed by God? Like,
Yes.
because the idea is you're handing your akhirah, your afterlife, in the hands of somebody who honestly you just cannot sincerely trust. Because why? The evidence is the scholars themselves don't agree between each other.
Exactly.
Like, so why would you trust a scholar, a single scholar, while he himself mistrusts other scholars and other scholars mistrust him?
And something important that I do have to state, and then we'll play the next clip after this, but the one thing that I do have to say is that Ahmad al-Hasan, from him is peace and Abu Sadiq, they made it very clear that it's not just Islam. It's every single divine religion that God had sent, whether it was Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, all of these religions that were once true, every single religion that God had ever sent forth is now today 99% corrupted. Not 99% of all religions, 99% of each religion is corrupted. So that actually means it is the fulfillment of the words of the Prophet, as you guys are narrating here on the show, that nothing remains of Islam except for its name, the eggshell of the religion. So basically we have a dead religion, guys. It's 99% empty. It's 99% bogus. It is 99% empty, or a corpse of what it used to actually be. So to understand what has been happening and our stance concerning the scholars, or the Qa'im's stance concerning the scholars, let us hear his words in the next clip to play.
Unfortunately, the sons of Satan that are on the earth have taken religion as a means of controlling and oppressing people, and have taken religion as a means to separate people and cause wars in the name of God. Due to the corruption of the teachings and words of the prophets and messengers, the sons of Satan, led by their non-working scholars, will fight the Qa'im, riser, on his mission to unite humanity. The 12 Imams, from them is peace, have said, when Imam Mahdi emerges, he shall not have a more clear enemy than the religious scholars, and for that reason, he and the sword are brothers. Because if it were not for the sword, the religious scholars would have issued decrees that he be killed. But God makes him appear with the sword, and with generosity and kindness, so that they may obey him, and fear him, and accept his judgment, without believing in it. Rather, they hold within their hearts the opposite of belief. In another tradition, Imam as-Sadiq, from him is peace, says, if the riser Qa'im emerges, there shall not be between him and the Arabs and the Persians, except for the sword. These two traditions tell us that the number one enemies of Imam Ahmad al-Hasan, from him is peace, will be the religious scholars of all religions, but most specifically, the religious scholars of Islam, Sunni and Shiite. Not because it is the riser Qa'im who wishes to impose on them his faith, but rather it is them that issue religious decrees to kill the riser Qa'im first and declare him an apostate and seek to eliminate and kill him and his companions first.
So we see here that obviously from the narrations that we see, the number one enemies, the number one nemesis against the Mahdi, against the savior of mankind, isn't the normal people. It's not even the Dajjal, as many Muslims would believe. It's not even the Christians or the Christian empires. It's actually the Muslim scholars themselves that actually have a problem with the Mahdi. So now if anybody is waiting for their scholars to verify who the Mahdi is, well, now they know not to look for them. And what's even worse, and I think that's even something that they didn't expect, is that when it comes to ethnicity, when it comes to background, it seems like the Arabs and the Persians actually have the biggest problem with the Mahdi when he comes. And that makes sense now in our call, because many of the people who believe in this dawah and believe in this call, most of them are actually not Arab or of Persian descent.
That's right. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say it's scary because, you know, when you look at the, you know, these like massive states like Iran, you know, the so-called Islamic State of Iran, it's scary because they had their revolution. They formed this so-called Islamic State, and they, in essence, parade around saying that this is the state of Imam Mahdi, and when he comes, we'll hand it over. But if you do a little bit of research, you'll see that it's actually the opposite. And they're saying that this state that we have, that we've created for ourselves, even if Imam Mahdi comes, what is more important is preserving this state. So even though they, you know, parade around on the face of it that this is, you know, secret meetings with Imam Mahdi is happening, in actuality, they just usurped the Imam Mahdi's religion, and they, you know, basically faking everything just so that they can keep their power. They have no intention of handing over, you know, Islam to Imam Mahdi to its rightful ruler. And in essence, they're just going to continue gathering money and gathering wealth and gathering power. And there's a saying from Ahmad Hassan Islam in the sayings of Ahmad Hassan that I just want to mention, because it goes hand in hand with what we see today with these non-working scholars, and also something that I wanted to highlight from Catholicism, because it's not just Islamic scholars that have thought us in the past. So this slide reads, it's the third slide. After that, it says, Ahmad Hassan is, you know, saying to someone that follows one of these marjas at Taqlid that we mentioned earlier. It says, if you are waiting for Imam Mahdi, peace be upon him and his family, through your scholars, then you will not come to see him, neither you nor 1,000 ones from your loins of your offspring. Your scholars have no need for Imam Mahdi, peace be upon him and his family. They are concerned with gathering money and mutta marriage and the destruction of religion. And I mean, we know obviously the history and the story of Ahmad Hassan. We'll get into it into later chapters about the Yamani, etc., and his time in Basra and the Hausa stories. But you can see that, you know, when you look at religion today, they are completely void of guidance. Their mosques are beautifully decorated, as we mentioned, but they have nothing of value to its, you know, adherents, the people that follow them. They don't come with any new knowledge. They, like you said, they make ijtihad. They read a little bit and think, yeah, I guess so. They have no divine authority. They have no legs to stand on, as we say, to issue any decrees, to give you any new knowledge. And they're obviously following, you know, hadiths and the Quran, etc., in these writings from 1,000+ years ago, that, you know, without its true companion, the Imam of the time, they don't know the true interpretations. They don't even know that the words in the Quran apply, like Abu Sa'id said, to us today. So when he's talking about Bani Israel, this and that in the Quran, it actually applies to us today. But they don't know that, so they can't relate these stories in a way that makes sense for us today. So they're dealing with the people with a book that is 1,000 years old, and they don't even have the true meanings of these verses for what is applicable today. But we, luckily enough, have the Goal of the Wise, which is written in plain English. It's written in a way that is completely easy to understand, that it doesn't have like these, thys, and, you know, 1,000 different translations and like different English versions that have verses that are completely different from one another. I think I was, you know, just as a little tangent, I was making one of these slides that we show on screen, and I had to ask you, I think it was you or someone, I was like, hey, which Quran should we use? Because they was all English, but like the verses, the same verse was completely different, all different translations. So like, you know, we have the saying of like 72 out of 73 sets go astray. So like, how do you know without this man that is appointed by God, what you're following and what translation or what even understanding of these verses is correct.
Exactly. I think this is one of the major disasters that the sectarianism without the Imam of the time they have to deal with and they have to solve for us. And like, we are present, you can contact us and reach us at any time. Prove us wrong. You know, like that's what we're saying. We're making massive claims over here. We're showing you the narrations of the family of Muhammad. We're showing you the Quran. We're showing you the hadith of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The prophets and the messengers before have warned us of your scholars. So why should us three right now actually come and join your religion? Because you have to have a good reason for it. You have to answer these things for us in order for us to think that you have a better religion, you know? So it's just like, allow a conversation and a discussion to happen around these topics, and you will see in the end you will benefit no matter what. The idea is that when it comes to the scholars, and when it comes to like Khamenei and Khomeini and these guys who started who are in the Irani government with the Wilayat al-Faqih, supporting the Wilayat al-Faqih and saying that it is the only way to do what we need to do today. In fact, it's a complete utter lie that they're doing it for Imam Mahdi. As you said, we have a video, a short video on our TikTok. You can go over there and check it out. They, with their own tongue, said that this government is more important than a single person, even if that person is the Imam of the time. And which means what? Which means if the Imam Mahdi comes and disagrees with these mashayikh, these grand signs of God, grand, imagine grand signs of God, then for sure they would unalive him. They would kill him. For sure they would kill him. For sure he's their enemy. And the narrations say, in fact, that the Imam al-Mahdi, when he appears and he goes to Kufa, 16,000, number again, 16,000 people who wear the imamas, this thing, and this here, you know how when you pray a lot, this dies and becomes dark, the sign of prostration and sujood. The memorizers of the Quran, they say, muqalladeen, they are imitated scholars. He would go to war with them. He would go to war with them. Why? Because they tell him, they carry their guns and they go out against him and say, "Return, O son of Fatima," which means they know that he is the son of Fatima.
They know that
they're not ignorant of who he is. They know him. And they tell him, "Return, O son of Fatima. We do not have any benefit or need for your religion. Our deen and the dunya, our religion and dunya are good."
And this actually proves, this hadith actually proves modern day times where, probably people before probably wouldn't have imagined. Who would say, like from the Shi'as, who would say to the son of Fatima, "Go back, O son of Fatima"? Like, it was probably not comprehensible for them. Like, what kind of true Shia in the right mind, who is a scholar, would openly say to the Mahdi, go back, O son of Fatima? But now we have an understanding that the Shias of today who follow Khamenei, they openly declare, as you said, that protect the state, even if Imam al-Mahdi looks like he's going to cause disharmony in society. So if you have to end the life of our own Imam al-Mahdi, who Allah says about him that he is Baqiyat Allah, the 12th Imam, then end his life. I mean, that is insane. That's like a Jewish person back in the time of Jesus saying, "Hey, look, if the Messiah comes and he disrupts the harmony of society, we should kill our own Messiah," because that's essentially what they did, and that's how they broke the covenant. When their Messiah came, they recognized him, they knew he was a Messiah, but then they ended up taking his life, or attempting to take his life anyway.
Exactly. I mean,
so anyway, that's all he wanted to say. As you're saying?
No, I was going to say, even in that time, Pilate recognized he's not even like a Jewish scholar. He's like a Roman general, and he recognizes that, this really is the king of the Jews, but you guys are going to kill him. And I guess, like he said, he washed his hands clean of this.
Yeah, he's like, "Hey, I have nothing to do with this anymore. Like this is you guys. You guys are the crazy ones here.
This is proof on you." And it's so true, because, that's exactly what's happening with Iran. Unless Imam Mahdi is born and went to like this scholar, the houses in Iran, and comes up through their system system and he's part of their system, they don't want anything to do with him. So what if Imam Mahdi comes now and says, actually, I don't like what's happening with Iran now. I don't like the oppression. I don't like what you guys have been doing in the so-called Republic of Iran, the Islamic Republic. Then what? They're going to obviously, like you said, they're going to, I guess you put it, unalive him. And I mean, this is why, I got another slide. This is why Abu Dar says, which is the next slide, in a narration where he's speaking to the Prophet Muhammad, he says, I was with the Prophet, peace be upon him, one day, and I heard him saying, there is something I fear for my ummah more than the Dajjal, which is the Antichrist. And it was then that I became afraid, so I said, Oh Rasulullah, what thing is that? And he said, misguided and astray scholars. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding, as you could say. And this is something that's written 1,000 plus years ago. And when you look at the face of the world today, this is why you know, the scholars of the end times are more corrupt and dangerous for Islam than the Dajjal himself. And what's scary is that, you know, back in the day when, you know, people was fought, the Prophet was fought in different wars and stuff, they were fighting with like sticks and stones, and at the time they were like date worshippers and idol worshippers. But in this day and age, when, you know, Abu Sadiq and the Imams got to rise up against them, they're going to be fighting him with what? The Quran and narrations and like the things that you would think are the true like measures, but they're obviously not. And that's what's going to be dangerous to the Muslim Ummah at large, because, you know, it's this sort of naivety and this ignorance of them that is going to lead them astray, because they're not taking religion into their own hands. They haven't made that step that we keep telling them to do, and be sincere and go forward and take religion into their own hands and, you know, research and read and scrutinize for their own selves. Instead, they're putting their hereafter and their religion into the hands of scholars like this that say, even if Imam Mahdi comes, we don't want him unless he's supporting our system.
And what's crazy, unless we vote for him to be a leader. How does that make sense, man? Like they actually took the Saqifa of the sons of Sa'id, which is like what the Shias have been for 1,400 years fighting the Sunnis over. They're saying that the Saqifa and the Shura, there is no such a thing as Shura, there is no such a thing as voting. Shura is voting, right? Like choosing your own leader through voting, like a democratic society. So the Shias for 1,400 years have been crying out loud day and night, even until today, hypocritically, by the way, like most of them, they don't even know what they're doing. They're saying that hypocritically, these scholars are saying that, hey, we're against the Shura of Bani Sa'ida, but it's okay, go vote now for your rulers. It's okay, so long as he's a Shia, you know, so long as he says, Ya Ali, you know, oh Ali, and calls to Fatima to Zahra and to Ahlul Bayt, that's it, he's a Shia, he's of us. So that's okay. Insane. And mind you, when you look into the origin of the state of faqih, wilayat al-faqih, or the jurisprudence rulership of Iran, it wasn't because there is a hadith, or because there was a command from Imam al-Mahdi, or that he, the creator of that state, actually said, Imam al-Mahdi visited me in a vision. There was nothing of that sort. He just literally made a logical conclusion, which is, guys, we are Muslims, we're Shia, we're the majority over here in the land. We see lots of wealth, right, in the land. Should we leave it to the kuffar? Or should we start our own government and start and get it for ourselves? What do you guys say? I say that we start our own government. Yes, and this is in their book. The book is called the Islamic government. You can read it. It's like literally one of their original sources where how they started the Wilayat al-Faqih. So it's the rulers of jurisprudence in Iran. It's as crazy as this, because if you're a Shia, you would say, well, the Imam didn't appoint a ruler over you and didn't command us to like actually build a state or something of that kind, except they actually said to warn us from that. They said every banner before the banner of the Qa'im is a banner of a tyrant. So now they raised a banner before the Qa'im as under the name of Shia Islam and under the name of Sunni Islam, of Al Saud and different kind of ones. We're talking right now about Iran, but there is no difference between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And there is no difference between Sunni and Shia anymore.
Probably even worse, actually.
There's no difference at all.
And you know,
in the system, I mean, not in the ideology.
For sure, for sure. You know, it's insane how the religion of the Ahlul Bayt, you know, the true Shias, right, the true Imams, have all prophesied to go against the scholars, or that the scholars would be enemies of the Mahdi, to the point that, you know, there is actually a narration that states that what Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had faced in his time is nothing compared to what the Qa'im would face. And the people were shocked. How is that the case? So, when speaking to one of the Imams, and one of the Imams replied and said, because in the time of the Prophet, the people were worshipping and following sticks and stones. They were worshippers of sticks and stones. In the time of the Qa'im, however, these people are following scholars who interpret the Quran, and they interpret the Quran against the Mahdi. So they use the Book of Allah. They use the Book of Allah, the Quran, against the Mahdi, stating, hey, but this verse says this, hey, that verse says that. And why would they do it unless the Imam comes with a matter which is different from what they expect or from what the Muslims expect? There's even a narration from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam where they said that the Qa'im shall rise with a new matter and a new book and a new jurisprudence, which will be hard for the Arabs. And that's why we see like all these scholars who are always saying, hey, does your Mahdi speak Arabic?
Why doesn't he wear a hat like that?
Why doesn't he wear an imamah? Why doesn't he wear like these robes like the other Shia scholars do?
Jeans?
Why doesn't he ride on a horse with a sword, like calling to Allahu Akbar and all these things? But like, hey, he comes with a new matter, new book, and a new jurisprudence. That means that he is going with different jurisprudence than when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with. So then they bring up the Quran and they say, hey, the jurisprudence of the Mahdi does not match the Quran, so now we have to go against him. But we see that as a fulfillment of prophecy. The Ahlul Bayt warned us beforehand that, hey, even if the Mahdi comes and he changes the jurisprudence, don't deny him. He'll come with a new matter. The Arabs will find it difficult, but hey, you will find it difficult if you're Arab, but look into the matter. Don't just deny it because it's difficult, because he comes with something new. Did not Prophet Muhammad come with new things when he made alcohol haram, or that he changed the direction of prayer from Jerusalem to the Kaaba, or that he did all of these new things such as permitting polygamy and many other matters that the Christians at that time couldn't handle. They were waiting for the Comforter, but then when the Comforter came, the priests were like, guys, okay, look, we changed our mind about this guy. He is not the Comforter. Leave this guy whose name is Muhammad. He for sure is not the Paraclete. Today people are doing the same thing about the Mahdi. They recognize him, and by the way, we've had scholars who said that the scholars, from behind the scenes, they know that Abu Sadiq is the Qa'im of the family Muhammad.
We had direct contact with them.
Exactly. And you know them. But unfortunately, just like those in the past who went against Jesus, like the rabbis, or the scholars of Bani Israel who went against Moses, or the scholars of Judaism, Christianity, and the pagans of Arabia against Muhammad, so too do we find scholars of all sects, especially the Shias, but the Sunnis and the Christians all going against the Mahdi, either calling him the Antichrist, the Dajjal, or by saying that he is basically a false Messiah or a false Mahdi figure. But yet, all their argument is just slander, no evidence, and accusations.
Allow me to prove the point that you just made right now.
Go ahead.
Physical terms, right? Like literally right now. If Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salatu wasalam, the argument is this: is that like the Mahdi, when he comes, he's going to face from the people more difficult times than Rasulullah met with the Jahiliyyah, with the Quraysh. And the reason is because they will all raise the Quran and interpret it against his own interpretation. Now, let's imagine for now the Imam Mahdi appears right now. And he starts to interpret an interpretation of the Quran, that he starts to talk. And that interpretation is different than the Sunni interpretation of the Quran. Immediately, all the Sunni scholars are going to raise the Quran and go like, see, we caught you. This is different than what we say. If he comes alongside the line of Sunni Islam, right? He's like interpreting similar to how Muslims, Sunnis interpret. The Shias are going to say, see, we caught you. You're different than us, right? So ultimately, what that narration proves itself right now. Like literally, you don't even need to look into the sanad of the hadith. It's automatically by just a simple application of what if Imam Mahdi came out right now. Somebody's going to raise the Quran against him. A lot of people, in fact, lots of sects are. Lots of sects of Islam the Sufis will raise it for sure. For sure the Shias and all their denominations, the Ismailis would, for sure. So the idea is it's provable evidence that the Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salatu wasalam, when he comes, the scholars are the first line of attack against him. They will stand against him and they will stand between the people and safety. and the joining of the Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salatu wasalam. Just like the scholars were told by Jesus Christ, he said that they're like rocks that are sitting on the eye of a river, not drinking themselves and not letting others drink. So it's like, this is the scholars that we are warning you from.
Exactly, and we're warning you because, I mean, on the face of it, it's a warning, but it's also a glad tiding because the end is near. The end of this rule of Satan and this rule of these non-working scholars and leading the masses astray is, coming to an end soon. And if you've been following along, we obviously been reading so far the Goal of the Wise, and it's very clear the contrast between Abu Sadiq Islam and any of these non-working scholars in terms of his knowledge, the fact that he has a will that he's attained by. He hasn't just found a cool business plan like you mentioned when they came with this Walayat al-Faqih idea and their unique selling point, and then basically conned the whole country into following them and become like billionaires. No, he actually has a divinely guided and protected will that he's come forward and claimed. He has knowledge, and it's time to raise the banner of supremacy of Allah, which he did, nearly 10 years ago now. And we're calling people now to recognize that. And if you've watched the most recent video with Dawood, it's a real eye-opener. It's entitled on the Mahdi Has Appeared channel. It's we would never punish a nation until the messengers come to them. So we're here now on the Goal of the Wise channel, preaching about the Goal of the Wise and telling you that the messenger is here. He's been here since 2015 and even before, but calling to you since 2015 to raise that banner. And just the intro give me chills. I just want to sort of repeat what it says, because in the time of Moses, just before that great punishment came in the 10 plagues, the one where obviously what they call Passover, where they wiped smeared the blood on the door of the believers' doors to stop them from being punished as part of the punishment of the Egyptians in that time. We too are saying that not only is the flood of blood coming and this is the Ark of Salvation, but we're also telling people now that they need to raise the supremacy of God, the Bayt Allah banner on their doors, and join sort of our camp to show that that they're sort of on the right side, just as the people in the time of Moses did with Passover, because the punishment is coming, and the really only way sort of out of it is to join again this Ark of Salvation and follow that messenger that has been divinely appointed by God, who has all of this knowledge and has the means in which he will establish the divine just state on earth.
And I think it's about time that since we talked about this extensively, I think it's crystal clear for you guys that the scholars do not have your best interest. And there's a reason why Jesus in the Bible, and it's reiterated now as a proverb more so than it is a verse of the Bible now, scholars are basically wolves in sheep's clothing. You got these teachers, these priests, these rabbis, these sheikhs or imams who are literally wolves in sheep's clothing. What does that mean, guys? This phrase goes around a lot. Right? But if you think about it, wolves in sheep's clothing means what? It basically means that there's a person who comes to you in the apparent as someone who looks like a pious man, looks like he cares about you, looks like he's full of love. There's pictures of him and videos of him shaking hands with his followers, maybe even crying, kissing their hands, holding someone's baby, and maybe a child is even smiling at that scholar or that priest. And you think to themselves, you know what? That man is a man of God. That man is someone who I love. Look at how he takes care of his people. Look at how he genuinely makes these sermons to, uplift the society that he's living in. But pay attention to the words of Jesus. Wolves in sheep's clothing. That means that inwardly, in the out, they look innocent. Inwardly, there's a hidden agenda. They look that way and they pose in that way because they want something out of you. Catholicism, as of today, is a multi-billion-dollar industry that the Vatican, everyone knows it's not something hidden. The Vatican is filthy rich. The Shia imams of, not the Ahlul Bayt, but I mean the Shia imams of the scholars of Taqleed, these guys are filthy rich too. Their shrines are being pumped with money while their countries are in the worst state ever, and people can't even afford food, they can't afford water, they can't even have like normal electricity, and the streets are just filthy and dirty, and there's corruption everywhere in each corner of Iraqi and Iranian society, and even Arab society as a whole. These scholars have no intention of any goodness for their people except that they themselves reach fame, fortune off of your backs and the sweats of your brow. So we would like the people to wake up from these non-working scholars and to take a chance with the Mahdi before it's too late. The Quran talks about how every time a prophet messenger came, that it was the eminent ones. That's what the translations would say, right? The eminent ones or the high ones of those societies talking against those prophets messengers sent. And we know that those eminent ones, those high ones, were the scholars who fought against Hud and Saleh and Noah, peace be upon all of them. So guys, pick up this book, The Goal of the Wise, watch the videos of Abu Sadiq, pay attention to this call and to this channel, and embark on the arc of salvation before it's too late. Anyway, that's all the time that we have left. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and we will see you in the next episode.